Yo family, welcome back to another video on the channel. So today I want to talk to you guys about the Sundered Doctrine, the brand new Dungeon 4 episode Heresy and its weapons. Now I wasn't trying to bait you guys in the title or the thumbnail at all. These weapons are honestly about to become best in slot of their type or archetypes. They have multiple perks which we'll get into, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. They have a fantastic set of perks to choose from, including some new ones, and they're pretty much stat monsters across the board as well. So whether you were initially excited about seeing them for the first time, these weapons are very good and definitely worth farming. Now if you haven't managed to do the Sundered Doctrine dungeon yet, come through to my Discord, link in the pinned comment down below. We often just run stuff out of regulars in the Discord, but also we do stream help as well. Again, twitch.tv/IamSideQuestSam. That is also down in the comment below. Drop a follow. But yeah, so I want to talk about these weapons today, guys, because the power creep is real here. Bungie have, again, brought something out which is intrinsically better than what we have already, and so I wanted to go through them today. Only 4 weapons in the set, so I didn't want to make an overly edited video or anything like that, so that's why we're just having this little sit down chat kind of video today. Hopefully you like this. Let me know down in the comments below if you would prefer me to just, you know, put something together that is a little bit more edited and stuff like that, but I thought with it being only 4 weapons, we could do this today. Anyway, with all that waffle out of the way, let's get started. If you find that I am worthy of a subscribe today, I would appreciate that, and if you enjoy the video, a like helps as well. But let's get started with the Unsworn trace rifle. So this one is strand, obviously goes in the kinetic slot, not too many of those around, and this offers some perks which we don't have on many other weapons as well. So in the first column we've got tear, stats for all, rewind rounds, subsistence, shoot to loot and thresh. Second column we have hatchling, detonator beam, elemental honing, bait and switch, target lock and kill and tally. So again, there are some firm favorites there, but also there are some new ones which I'm very interested in. So depending on what you're building this weapon for, tear is obviously going to be very good. Precision final blows are going to sever enemies around, making them do less damage to us, which is good. Stats for all is, like, for me, a universal perk. It's very good on certain weapons, but it wouldn't be the first thing that I'd be looking for on this one. Rewind rounds, definitely a contender. Keeping that continuous beam on the enemy means that we're going to get ammo back, so we're not going to have to reload as often. Subsistence, again, same thing, but obviously is going to require kills. Shoot to loot, very good endgame perk. Obviously you can get your ammo bricks and your orbs of power by using this, so that is very good. And then thresh, of course, if you are building into a build that requires this, then that would be the only time I guess you'd pick that. So for me, what I'm going to be looking for on this, guys, is possibly a combination of rewind rounds with detonator beam. Now, I haven't been able to do much testing on detonator beam yet, but essentially what it does is by keeping continuous damage on an enemy, it's periodically going to cause an explosion of 266 damage, damaging enemies around it, and it takes about 25 hits with a trace rifle to do this. I think it's 20 if you get this perk enhanced. And then so by doing that, you're going to be able to keep the beam on for longer without having to reload with rewind rounds, and then detonator beam is going to be causing that explosion. Another thing I thought about, perhaps potentially, if you don't want to go for rewind rounds, god, it's really hard to say that sometimes, is shoot to loot. Potentially, again, this is speculation, I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure detonator beam may actually proc shoot to loot with that explosion. I'd have to test that, I haven't yet, but that potentially might be something. But even so, that combination together in harder difficulty content, I think, is going to be pretty good. You're going to be able to pick up that ammo and orbs from afar if you're playing a little bit further back, and then obviously detonator beam is going to be doing a decent chunk of damage, plus it's going to be damaging enemies around it. Of course, we have things like target lock and kill and tally, which are sort of like firm favorites on these kind of weapons. So again, they are things you could go for. Maybe you'd want to go for something like subsistence with kill and tally. Obviously, if you've got a very strand focused build, you've got hatchling there as well. Now, probably should have said this before I started getting into talking about the weapons. The reason that I said in the title that every weapon has 3 perks is because of the origin trait subjugation. Now, this says that it adapts to targets when dealing damage. And why it says that is because it based on the enemies that you are fighting, that is going to change the behaviors of the origin trait. So if you are fighting standard red or yellow bar enemies, you are going to basically get explosive payload on all of these dungeon weapons. It says weak targets, shocks explode. So you're getting explosive payload, explosive damage on top of the other 2 perks that you're picking. If it's strong targets, targets become exhausted. This is like Sever and things like that. This basically debuffs the enemies and stops them from doing as much damage to us. And then there are a couple of weapons here which do have decent PvP rolls on, not this one in particular, but for Guardians, the weapons flinch resistance increases. We have a shotgun to talk about, which is probably one of the best in slot now, and that is going to take advantage of that as well. So I'm not going to go through barrel magazine for every weapon, guys, but if you're interested for this one, I'd probably go for fluted barrel for that extra stability and handling, and then I'd go for enhanced battery to max that mag out at 104. Again, that's always preference. If you want more stability, more handling, more range, they're always down to your preference to do so. But regardless, guys, this is a very good weapon. Overall pick, I'm probably going to say that I would be going for shoot to loot and detonator beam or rewind rounds with it. But again, there are some tasty perks in there. So moving on from there, let's go for the Unworthy, which is a new ARC scout rifle. I really like the 260 rounds per minute ones. This is the sweet spot for me, so I was really excited to see this. As usual, if I'm going for a barrel and mag perk in PvE, it's usually going to be something like corkscrew with either flared magwell or appended mag. Either one of those, probably flared magwell I would say for this one. We're getting the extra bump in reload speed and stability there. And then in the first column we have Heating Up, Rapid Hit, Ambitious Assassin, Firefly, Keep Away and Rewind Rounds. We then have Rolling Storm, a new perk for this season, Frenzy, Paracausal Affinity, which is obviously the trait that came out with the Root of Nightmare dungeon, I believe. Sorry, raid, not a dungeon. Precision Instrument, Zen Moment, and obviously Volt Shot. Again, very good. So for me here, it's going to be a choice of a few things. If you wanted to use this for PvP, Keep Away and Zen Moment is there as a perfect pairing to use, or you could go Keep Away and Precision Instrument, either one if you're looking for consistency or you're looking for that extra damage. When we are talking about PvE, I would be going for Firefly in this first column, and the reason for that is because everybody just thinks this is a precision perk that explodes and does explosive damage, which obviously it does. But when you do so, it grants you 50 reload speed for 6 seconds. So as you can see, when we flick that on, we actually max out our reload speed, which is really good. Now, naturally, the pairing that's going to come with that is Volt Shot. Because you're getting that 100 reload speed when you're getting that precision kill, it's going to allow you to reload and proc Volt Shot really, really quickly. So you're then going to be getting the explosive solar damage from Firefly, plus that Volt Shot jolt after it as well, which is obviously a very, very nice pairing to have. If you weren't going for Volt Shot, also Frenzy again, and even if you took off Firefly, Frenzy actually intrinsically gives you 100 handling and 100 reload speed as well, and Frenzy offers you 15% damage for just over 7 seconds by being in combat for 12. So this is a really easy 15% increased damage to have just by being in combat, and that's the reason why I'd pick this over something like Paracausal Affinity, which is only for 6 seconds. So for me, it's easier to proc Frenzy, and it's a really solid perk on any weapon. That is always going to be in the chat or the discussion when we're talking about that stuff. So for me, guys, honestly, my perk pairing would be Firefly with Volt Shot, or if not, obviously you can go Firefly Frenzy. They would be the two. If you are really leaning into an arc heavy build, then of course you can consider the new perk Rolling Storm, which says final blows grant Bolt Charge, and while amplified, you get more Bolt Charge. Again, I don't really think it's necessary right now because of the amount of ways that we can build Bolt Charge. We've also got the seasonal artifact perks, which are helping us out with the art builds too. But if you obviously wanted to build something for the future, then you may want to consider getting that role as well. So moving on from there, guys, we have the hand cannon, which is called Unloved. I don't know who was creating these names. Obviously, we're sitting listening to some real sad boy music at the time. But nevertheless, this is a powerhouse. It's probably going to be considered the strongest weapon of the set, I would imagine. So if you dial back a few seasons ago or a few months ago, Warden's Law became the must-have thing. The kinetic damage that it put out was insane, especially paired with things like Lucky Pants on the Hunter. This is essentially a strand version of that. It's that heavy burst to fire in burst hand cannon, and obviously it is strand as well, so we have some strand specific perks, but we have a lot of good options here. So again, barrel and magazine are going to be entirely down to your choice. We have Hatchling, Rapid Hit, Heating Up, Killing Wind, Dragonfly and Outlaw. We then have Paracausal Affinity, Elemental Honing, tear, kill clip, frenzy, and closing time. So if you wanted a PvP role of this, I personally don't really enjoy these style hand cannons in PvP, but you have things like Killing Wind, Rapid Hit, even Outlaw if you wanted to, and you can pair that up with Closing Time, which is becoming a very popular perk. This is obviously going to give you massive increases to everything that matters, so range, accuracy, and handling. So if you're looking for PvP roles, that's what I would consider. For me, the overall pairing that I'm going to be going for here is going to be Dragonfly. So Dragonfly is going to give you that explosive damage when you get precision kills. You're going to go with Frenzy, which is going to give you max handling and max reload speed. And then on top of that, you're also again going to have that subjugation origin trait. So you're going to have explosive payload essentially intrinsically on the gun, Dragonfly, plus a 15% damage from Frenzy, plus the handling and reload speed buffs. This thing is going to be absolutely nuts. So explosive damage just from firing the weapon, Dragonfly exploding when you get precision shots, and then you've still got that extra 15% from Frenzy. That for me is going to be an absolutely crazy combo. If you didn't want to go for that, obviously, if you really wanted to kind of build into that strand side of things, you could go for something like Hatchling with Tear. That obviously is going to be doing strand damage whilst also severing enemies as well. So that could be pretty good, an option for you to choose. The reason I haven't really spoken about this elemental honing buff yet is because it's kind of like a lesser version of bait and switch, honestly. So you can stack up elemental buffs or elemental damage based on the different elements of weapon you are using. So the more different elements that you use to damage an enemy, the more you are going to build this up. So you can get this up to 5 stacks, which will give you a 35% buff to elemental weapons or a 40% buff to kinetic weapons when you do this. But of course, that means running a different elemental weapon in every slot, and then obviously having to cycle through those weapons. It's not something that I would normally be doing like with a primary weapon. So if you're interested in that, it does offer very high buffs. 40% on kinetic weapons is probably, I think, the highest damage buff you'd be able to get in game for doing that. But it does require some setup and some work. I am lazy, I prefer consistency, so Frenzy was going to be the main perk here for me. And like I said, that Dragonfly pairing with it, plus the origin trait, is going to make this weapon very strong. Finally, we have the Unvoiced, which is a shotgun. Now, I know I said this is mainly PvE, but obviously we don't really have a meta of PvE going on with slug shotguns at the moment, but it does, however, have some very, very interesting perks. So obviously, even when slugs are meta, they're not really for ad clear, but straight off the rip, the top 2 pairings together, you've got Destabilize and Rounds, and then you've got Demoralize. So Demoralize says precision final blows cause nearby targets to become weakened. So pairing that weaken with the explosions from Destabilize and Rounds, that is going to be great for ad clear. Otherwise, 4th time's a charm, always a good perk to have on these weapons. Again, in that second column, we have Frenzy or Vorpal Weapon. Vorpal Weapon obviously is going to do 15% damage, so they're kind of the same. So in my opinion, you'd go for Frenzy just to get that handling and reload speed buff. The big one for me here is going to be Envious Arsenal. So if you are using this for PvE, it's normally going to be to mag dump on an elite, a boss, or a champion. This is going to be the best perk for you to do that by damaging with other weapons. This is going to refill the mag, and then you can dump that all out. Also, something else that people sleep on is redirection. So if you get 30 stacks of this, this gives you a 33% increased damage buff. So obviously that's going to require some setup in getting kills before you then unload with this onto an enemy, but it is a good perk. I think it came with the Deepstone Crypt Raid, I think initially is where this perk came from. So that's a really good one. You could pair that with something like Bait and Switch, so you can build up all those stacks, cycle your weapons, then you can have a 33% damage buff from this, plus the 30% that you get from Bait and Switch as well, which would be pretty crazy. So that is another good option to have there as well. Now, in terms of PvP, this is the weapon that I said is probably going to be like best in slot now, and you're going to pair together Lone Wolf with Closing Time. So when you have these, if you are alone with Lone Wolf, that's going to bump your stats up there. Closing Time with max effect, this is an absolute stat monster. As you can see, it takes it to 90 range and 100 handling, which is absolutely crazy. You can obviously then even smack that range on there and hit max range with it, which is absolutely insane. So I can see this one being a top contender in PvP going forward. So if you are interested in that, guys, obviously that would be something I'd go for. Not forgetting that subjugation is also going to put the resistance increase to flinch up, which is also going to help with that even more. That's everything for today, guys. Like I said, there is only the 4 weapons, but naturally, like I said, these are very strong. The power creep is real here, and there are some very, very good weapons, which I think you should be farming. If you did like the video, guys, leave a like, and don't forget to let me know which weapons you're enjoying or which perks you're enjoying. And if you aren't enjoying them because you haven't done it yet, make sure to come through to that Discord. Thank you, as always, for watching the video today, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.